How are you?
I'm doing great. In fact, this is going to be one of our best segments because when Tim and I were going back and forth on subjects over the past week or so, I called the subject line, "Shut Up and Play the Hits," in homage to LCD Sound System, because some of these topics are going to be the best we've ever covered today.
So that's high expectations.
Yes, let's jump off with the 5 for 5. We've heard a lot about that of late, and then within the last 24 hours, we've heard even more that it is going to go into effect. I guess just your overall thoughts on the 5 for 5. Do you think it's a good move for college sports?
Well, it's never going to be held up because what you're saying here, remember, in the old days, I always go back to the old days when we have these segments, but in the old days, what you were either giving a student athlete or depriving a student athlete from was an education. Now it's the ability to earn money. So this rule is in violation of trade. It's restraint of trade. And that's what the courts are going to see. Because by saying to a 19-year-old, you have 5 years of eligibility, no redshirting, then what you're saying is you've got a limited amount of time to earn, which the courts are going to say is legally arbitrary. That's where this is going.
So, the NCAA announced that, this 5 for 5 does not apply to current seniors or, student athletes who just wrapped up their senior year now that we're, here into the middle of June. But as expected, to your point, there's already been, 50 college basketball players who have filed a lawsuit that were from that high school class of 2022. What are the chances that those lawsuits make it so that, we could see some guys, Syracuse, for instance, had William Kyle on their team last year, and I don't think that William Kyle's trying to come back, but do you think that guys like that who played 4 years, 4 seasons in 4 years would be eligible moving forward for a fifth year, guys who just exhausted their college eligibility?
So first of all, and this term is going to come up definitely today in our conversations, they have legal standing to sue, meaning they are actually affected by this and they can sue. Whether they're going to be successful is a very, very different story. By the way, something that's tied into all of this that I think is worth mentioning is a rule that the NBA has, right? The NBA for a long time has had, a rule where you've got to play at least 1 year of college. We've got to get rid of, in light of this legislation, one and done. If kids want to go directly from high school into the NBA, that's fine. You know what happened last night? We had 15 freshmen in round 1 of the NBA draft go into the NBA. So a rule like this can't coexist with the one and done rule. Either this rule is going to be valid, which I don't believe it will be, in which case that's fine. Get rid of the one and done. Or this rule is going to be invalid, and then little nuances that we've had over the years, like one and done and redshirting, are still going to have their place.
I got a question for you on this. You don't think it's going to hold up. Does that mean you think that kids could just play at college till they're 40?
I think that we're going to see what we talked about last time with Will Wade and LSU. I think you're going to have people who continue to test the elasticity of logic and the law.
I also have been questioning this. Is it time for the NCAA to put their foot down too, on this? If they think this is a hill they can die on and win, do they need to just say, you know what, we're going to the Supreme Court with this and we're going to fight you all the way, just like happened with the Ed O'Bannon case?
They have to, because the NCAA isn't fighting for a rule, they're fighting for their own relevance. The NCAA, as we've said from day one of NIL has no reason to exist. So if the NCAA doesn't fight this as hard as they can, then they're not fighting for their own survival. So they will.
Our understanding with the implementation of this is that any medical red shirt that's already been given out can't be retracted, right? It's Steve Angeli's the case here where he had a red shirt. He's got 2 years of eligibility left, even though he's going to be older than 23. They're not going to take that year away from him. In your mind, what is the smoothest way, I guess, for the NCAA to roll this out? Because as we said, there are going to be some lawsuits. There are going to be some bumps in the road. What's the smoothest way for this to go, I guess, from the NCAA's perspective?
I mean, there's no smooth way to do it, but the most logical legal way of doing it is saying it is as of today. And then you're still going to get lawsuits and you're going to get one-offs and people who might have had a legal claim that they had standing for a while ago and didn't make it. They want to make it now, etc. But you just got to roll the rule out from today.
I
got another one for you about the. You said the NBA should get rid of the one and done rule. Meanwhile, baseball is trying to add a 2-year rule to it. Do you think that will happen?
Probably not. Remember, every sport in college has a different look and feel. College baseball is very, very different from college basketball. There's no history in college baseball of really a lot of people, 1 year into college going out. And plus, what happens? If you're a superstar in college, well, not a superstar, if you're a star in college baseball, you're still probably going to the minors anyway. The reality is, if we had the one and done gone next year in college basketball and the NBA, you'd have a lot of kids going directly from high school to NBA contracts, even with NIL and the opportunity for their 1 year in college to earn a decent living.
Since we last had you on, Aaron, the Brendan Sorsby case kind of played itself out, right? And he was granted that injunction. It looked like he was going to be allowed to play. Then, for whatever reason, whether it was him, the school, his representation, somebody convinced him just to enter the supplemental draft. Then the supplemental draft was canceled. They decided not to hold one. So now he's a man without a team until next year's NFL draft. Did we learn anything through this Brendan Sorsby case?
Well, the first thing we learned, I just said a few minutes ago, is that the NCAA has no real reason to exist. I want to, blow my own horn for a second here, because I called this when we were on together a couple weeks ago.
Yes, you did.
I was the only one in the room who said that he would be deemed eligible to play at Texas Tech, but I didn't believe he would ever play at Texas Tech. Well, that's exactly what happened. Now, I want to read one thing from the NFL's letter that they sent to him last night. And again, as a lawyer, you can send a little bit too much, a little bit too little. There's no such thing as a perfect letter. I believe the NFL made a legal and strategic mistake in their last sentence to what they sent him last night, which was, "We encourage you to focus on preparing for possible entry into the NFL through the 2027 NFL annual draft." They should have left this out, because the NFL is kind of painting themselves into a corner now, saying, if you keep your nose clean, then you can go into the regular draft next year. I wouldn't have done that to myself if I was the NFL. And here's why. I have a question for you guys. Will you have any doubt in your mind that there's something fishy going on? Or will you have any questions the first time Sorsby throws an interception in the NFL? Or would you look at it the same way if Tua throws an interception?
No, you're absolutely right. There is doubt now in our minds.
I would always wonder, with every interception that Sorsby throws in the NFL, how much he won from that interception. And the NFL is not going to let that happen. So they're painting themselves in the corner through that last sentence. They should have kept the rest of the letter, which is just basically saying, which they're totally entitled to do. They said, we're not going to hold the supplemental draft. Now, one other legal thing that I know people are picking up on this, very, very, very important, is the fact that his lawyers immediately said, well, we're going to sue. Standing. His lawyers and Sorsby do not have standing to sue the NFL. Why? Think about it. In any other job, let's say you're going to go work at General Motors. You're not in the union yet, right? You don't have any union rights. You only get those rights when you're in the union. So Sorsby has no rights under the NFLPA. However, if the NFLPA wanted to take up this case with the NFL about canceling the draft and the impact that had on Sorsby, they would. Personally, I think the NFLPA is just going to be, we don't want anything to do with it at this point, which is the right stance. But I think that's an important angle you're going to see over the next couple of weeks as well. Who has standing? And if you have standing, are you actually going to try to do something about this?
Aaron, since you brought up the NFL, I know there's this story out there that 5 law firms have been accused of defrauding the NFL's concussion fund. What can you tell us about that story?
Well, I can tell you the worst part first. I mean, one of the lawyers involved in this defrauding, potential alleged defrauding of the construction of the concussion fund, is Bart Oates. That name should ring a bell to all of us. Bart Oates was a 3-time Super Bowl champion with the New York Giants and San Francisco 49ers. He was representing claimants here. The way this happened was very, very easy to explain. Under the concussion protocol, which, if you'll think back a few years, came out of that whole NFL race norming thing that I actually wrote about back in The Independent years ago, and was actually nominated for a Pulitzer Prize, believe it or not, for that piece. That's what the concussion fund was all about. So there was a fund to give to award to players who proved they had concussions. This group of lawyers, and again, lawyers, I believe, are generally wonderful and fantastic people. And like any other profession, you get some bad ones. These were bad ones. And these lawyers were basically paying doctors under the table to give false and fake diagnoses, which allowed these athletes to go into the concussion protocol fund, even though there was no reason for them to. It was a lot of money. This took money away from people who should have been compensated by the fund. And there's going to be fines and jail time that come out of this.
All right. One other thing I want to hit on with you, Aron, before we let you go. The Lars Tiffany situation down in Virginia. He's a local guy here from Lafayette, just outside of Syracuse. Obviously, legendary coach and won multiple national titles. And, the circumstances around his departure are controversial, I guess, from Virginia. And it sounds like he was offered an extension. They went back and forth. He signed an offer sheet. Then the school was like, well, actually, we're not going to do anything until after the season. He believed that there was a binding agreement. The school said there wasn't. He was let go, and now there's a lawsuit that, Lars Tiffany has sued the university. What are your thoughts on this case, and what are your predictions on how things play out from here?
So there was a binding agreement, but there wasn't. And I'll give you a good analogy of what happened here. Let's say you go and you make an offer to buy a house. Well, that's a legally binding arrangement, right? But let's say there's a counteroffer. The counteroffer in the law supersedes the offer, and the offer is no longer valid. That's the university's argument here. The university argued, yes, we offered him an extension. And then he came back with a counteroffer for more money and more years. That negates the offer that was on the table. Now, the university waited and didn't get back to him, which you're allowed to do with a counteroffer. Back to my house example, you make an offer on the house. The selling party gives you a counteroffer. You never get back to them again. Well, the counteroffer is no longer valid after a certain amount of time, and your offer is no longer valid. If the facts remain as we understand them now, I believe the university will prevail, and there is not a good legal argument that there was a valid offer still on the table.
It sounds like they had a 3-year offer on the table. He asked for 4 years. They never really got back to him on the 4 years. He signed the offer that had the 3 years on it, but that doesn't exist anymore once he made the count. That's essentially what you're saying? That's
what I'm saying. Well, that's what the university's saying, and I'm saying that just on the facts as we as spectators know today, that is, without all the other stuff that's going on around this case, the fact that he didn't sign and said, well, instead of 3 years, $10 million, how about 4 years, $14 million? I'm making those numbers up. That negates the original offer. And that's going to be the university's opening stance.
Interesting. See, we always learn something when we have you on, Aron. Anything else that we should be monitoring right now?
I got one thing. So big thing coming out of women's tennis, the WTA. A really fantastic Czech player who won Wimbledon a couple of years ago. Her name is Markéta Vondrousová. She's also really a pretty wonderful person. She just got suspended this year for 4 years for not failing a doping test like Iga Swiatek and Jannik Sinner did, but for actually skipping a test. And why did she skip her test? Because the doping commission that came to do it was out of protocol. She didn't know it was them. And this is all in the context of another famous Czech woman player being stabbed a few years ago when someone showed up at her apartment in the middle of the night. The end result of all of this is a 4-year ban, which will essentially and effectively end her career, which always goes to what I say anytime we talk about tennis, is that it is a wonderful sport, my favorite sport, and probably the most professionally corrupt sport out there.
Are there any, is there any appeals process or what recourse can she take?
There is an appeal process, but you're appealing essentially against the World Anti-Doping Agency and the agency that ends up doing the tests, and nobody's going to be in your court, no pun intended. The WTA, the governing body of women's professional tennis, isn't going to advocate for her. She's on her own. She's not allowed to play in the meantime pending an appeal, and it's emotionally extremely difficult.
Well, as I said, we always learn something when you come on. You were right about the Brendan Sorsby case. You're right about pretty much everything.
I know the feel. I know the feeling, Aron.
Do you?
Yes,
Do you, Paulie?
yes.
Do you?
Yeah,
I'm not sure about that.
It gets tiresome being right. So.
I got to be right about one more thing before we go, guys. And you're not going to like this news. Kale is my favorite green. It is absolutely
No.
delicious, not even for the
Is
health
it?
benefits. Listen, try fresh kale from a farm around Syracuse, not the stuff you get in a plastic thing at Piggly Wiggly. It's really good.
All right. Okay.
How do you feel about Jolly Ranchers?
If somebody gave me one, I would take it, but I wouldn't go out and buy it.
There you go. There you go. All right, we agree on something. Thank
guys.
you, Aaron.
See
Be
you
well.
later.
Aron Solomon joining us.